You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope, the podcast. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm here with a very special guest, Dr. Aumatma Simmons. And I hope I'm saying her name right because it's beautiful when she says it. But Dr. Aumatma is a double board certified naturopathic doctor and endocrinologist. In practice for close to 15 years, she specializes in infertility and is the best-selling author of 2 books, Fertility Secrets, What Your Doctor Didn't Tell You About Baby Making, and Infertility with parentheses on the end, Struggles, Secrets, and Success. Dr. Aumatma, I'm going to get this. I'm telling you, I'm going to be the best person who ever said your name, was awarded the Best Naturopathic Medicine Doctor Award locally in 2015 and 2020, and recognized as a top woman in medicine doctor in 2020 and 2021. In addition to supporting couples through individualized care in person and long distance, Dr. Aumatma also trains practitioners who want to specialize in infertility. She has been featured as a holistic fertility expert on ABC, Fox, CBS, KTLA, MindBodyGreen, and The Bump, along with being interviewed for countless podcasts and topics of fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum health. And recently, she will be coming out in Best Holistic Life magazine, which I'm so excited about. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jana. I'm so excited to be here. And I just love everything that you do and everything that you represent. So I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you. We're so honored to have you. One of the things that we do at the beginning of every show is we always ask our guests to share a story of hope. Honestly, I believe our struggles and our journeys and our stories are like a superpower that we were given. And when we start sharing it with the world, they know they're not alone and there's also hope for them. So do you want to share your story?
Yes, I can share so many stories. Do you want me to share a personal story or a client story? Because I can go either way.
So I know that you're going to have a billion client stories, but I like that people hear yours because I want them to know, like, we didn't just pop out this way. Like, it was a journey for us too. So if you want to share a personal journey, a story, I would love that.
Yeah. Part of what got me into fertility, I feel like is a story of hope, because for me, I was married to this man who one day started talking about babies. And we had been in a relationship by that point, probably 5 or 6 years. So it was a long time that I was in this relationship. We had gotten married about a year prior to that. And he started talking about babies. And I don't know what it was, but something in me just was like, no way, I don't want to do this. And that urging of his actually got me thinking and feeling like, actually, I do want to have a child. I'm really clear I want to have a child. Thank you for that. And I'm really clear it's not with you. And I had a moment of freaking out. This is literally what started all of the fertility work that I'm so passionate about now. I started frantically researching, because even as a naturopathic doctor, what I learned in medical school was our fertility drops off of a cliff at 35. So I was not quite at 35, but getting there. And I was like, well, it's going to take me 10 years to meet another guy. And 5 years into that relationship, we're going to talk about kids. Oh, it'll be too late by then. I don't have the time. So I went on this frantic search. What can I do? How can I empower my own body? And what I found just blew me away. And one of the early findings was I went on this rabbit trail. They're literally like breadcrumbs, right? So I traced it all the way back. And that breadcrumb started in Catholic churches in the 1800s in France. And that is how we have come up with this idea that fertility declines at 35. It's not based in science, it's not based in research, and it's definitely not current. It's literally from the 1800s. And the church realized, hey, women aren't bringing their kids to us to get baptized. So they must not be having kids after 35. And they decided, oh, fertility just ends at 35. And we have continued to, and yes, there's research and there's data now that points to these things, but we're interpreting data from this lens that fertility just dies at 35. So what my story through all of that was, I divorced that man. And I decided that I was going to find the right partner. I met him literally 3 weeks after our divorce was final. 3 weeks. It didn't take that long. And he wanted to have kids. And we didn't have kids right away. I had a kid at 38, so much later in life. But the journey and literally like everything that I was doing for myself, my body, my fertility, I'd become like entrenched in all of the fertility stuff, which got to the point, and he takes all the credit for this. He's like, it's my super sperm. And I was like, but what about my super eggs? But we got pregnant on the very first time that we tried. And he, like, this man, he's amazing. He literally was like, can we try yet? Can we try yet? Can we try yet? For a year, he insisted that we were ready for kids. And finally, one day I was like, yes, we can try. Today is the day. And we literally got pregnant that day. And it was
Really was the day.
really wild. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a little bit of my story and the hope that a lot of women that we work with are freaking out because they don't have a partner yet, or they're not ready to have kids yet for whatever reason. And to be able to be that person to say, you can have a child at hopefully whatever age you choose, but definitely 35 is not the cutoff, right? 35 is so young these days. And women want to have more time to do whatever, to do life, to do their work, to do their passions in the world. And I really, truly believe that we should have the time on our ovarian clock, if we want to call it that, to do what we want to in our life and to time babies that in a way that makes sense. And for someone else, they might want to have a kid at 25, and someone else might want to wait till 35 or 45, whatever it is. I am all about that. Like, have a kid with the right person when you're ready to have a kid, or by your choice, on your own, if that's your choice. Like, whatever your choice is in this journey towards parenthood, motherhood, let it be in your power and not controlled by someone else.
I love that. I had never knew that about where our fertility clock got started, but I do hear women all the time, like, because my daughter's 35 and hasn't had babies yet. She doesn't have found a person she wants to have babies with yet. Mm-hmm. And I know she freaks out about it, but my mom had my youngest sister at 42, mm-hmm. all natural, right? Mm-hmm. And so it happens, like your clocks, like that's really, once our brain starts thinking that too, by the way, we're going to slow down that fertility process because our brain is saying, well, we can't do this. We're too old now. Like our eggs aren't any good.
Yeah. The power of the mind, right? Like our minds are actually more powerful than science would like to give us credit for. So I really do believe that we are often freaking ourselves out into this fear mode. And then the ovaries, like, what do? They're like, I don't want to exist in this world. Right. And they shrink back. So if we can like live in our power and go to these doctors, I'm going to get into another story, but stop me if I'm giving you too many stories.
No, you're never giving us too many stories.
This woman that I worked with, it's been a few years now, but she started working with me at 43. And she was like, I really want to have a child, but my hormones have been out of whack my entire life. I have fibroids, I have cysts, I have PCOS, like all of these hormonal imbalances. And she's like, and I went to visit an IVF clinic and they were like, you need to have kids right now, today. Like, forget your hormones, forget everything. We're just going to get you pregnant. And she's like, something felt so off about that. She's like, I don't want to have a kid right now in the state that my body's in. I realize that my body needs to get healthier. So long story short, we worked together for almost 2 years. And then finally I was like, okay, you're ready. She's a solo mom by choice. She knew she was going to have to do IVF. She was like, I am ready now. I feel it. My body's healthier. My hormones are better. My fibroids are gone. Like everything that she came in for, literally check, 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 check. And she went into the clinic and my heart broke for what they told her. They literally were like, why did you wait 2 years? Didn't we tell you 2 years ago that your time was going to be off and you're going to run out of time? And she was like, listen, I respect what you have to say. I absolutely believe you. Just do the treatment. And she's like, I don't need your lecture. I don't need to be told what you want me to hear. I need you to just do what you're good at. And they were like, whoa, who's this lady? Why is she telling us what to do? And lo and behold, they did the IVF treatment. Her first and only cycle got 23 eggs, which is unheard of at her age, at 45. 17 of them fertilized to what they consider really amazing embryos. They were like, wow, we have so many. What are we going to do with all these embryos? And they decided, like, together with her, but they were like, well, the chances are so low that any of these are going to take. Let's implant as many as we can. So they implanted 8 embryos. This woman was bawling. She was like, please tell me that there's a way that only one is going to take, because I'm a solo mom. There's no way I want to have more than one child. And luckily only one took. But all this to say, like, there's hope for whatever age. And like that clock, like, she didn't give in to the fear. She didn't give in to the stories that the world around her was saying. She's like solid in her belief of, I know what my body has been through. I know what I'm capable of. Just do the treatment. And just like every time I think about her, I'm like, she's the ultimate, like the epitome of courage and hope and just like what's possible, because never through that whole journey was she doubting that she was going to have a child. Never through the whole journey was she like, oh, should I give up? Should I throw in the towel? No, she was just like, I'm doing this. I'm going to keep going. And for 2 years, she was like, I know that my health is improving. Like, I know that it's getting there. And for her to stay on that path for so long till I was like really sure, because she was like, I don't want to have to do more than one IVF treatment. Like, it's bad enough I have to do one. And by the time she went for her second, like her treatment, it was just phenomenal. Like what her results were. That clinic to this day are like, what, wait, so who did you work with again? Like, how does this happen? And could she do this for all of our 45-year-olds? Because this would change the game.
Dr. Aumatma, I think you're fabulous. And we were literally just talking before we started this show about, like when I was younger, the generation I was raised in, you rarely heard of anyone struggling to get pregnant. And by the way, we got pregnant fairly early in life. Like we were having babies, then trying to live our life instead of building our life and careers and then having babies. Yeah. By the way, either choice is good. Like, it doesn't matter, whatever works for you. So this is no judgment on people having babies early. I did. But when you're out there, you have options. But what is blowing me away is I just had told you that I swore if I watched a dirty movie, I might be pregnant. That's how fertile I was. And I still may think I may have gotten pregnant that way once. But there are women now, like every single day, because I'm in health and wellness industry, I have people come and can say, can you refer me to a infertility specialist you work with? I've been struggling for years. I can't get pregnant. And then they go down a list of reasons the doctors have told them they can't get pregnant. And I know that a lot of that, whether it's true or not, things happen, things change. But if you have it in your mind that I can't do something, your mind prevents you from doing it because you've told it you can't.
Right.
So what are some, in your book, you talk about the struggles, the secrets, and the success. What are some of the struggles that you find your clients are going through now? And then we'll get to some secrets and some of the successes.
Yeah, and I'll speak to a little bit of what you just said in your own story about how it was this, like, in even what I grew up with as a young adult in the US. My parents were very religious and they moved us from India. So they were like freaked out. If I even talked to a guy, they were like, "Oh my God, you're gonna get pregnant. You're gonna get pregnant before you're married." And they were just so scared about all of it. And it there was a time when it was true that women were getting pregnant really easy, but there has been, I feel like some of the struggles are cultural. So part of it is that we as a culture have just gotten to the point where a lot of women and couples are choosing till later in life to get pregnant. They're waiting till later to start their families, and that's okay. That's not a judgment. It's not a don't do it. It's more that's where our culture and society is today. And the second is that there is a huge amount of environmental toxins that are happening in our environment every single day. And those toxins have just increased in the negative impact that they have on the hormones. So they're called endocrine disruptors. They're literally in the water we drink, the random medications that we're exposed to, the food that we eat. Like, so many different things have endocrine disruptors. I was just doing a podcast interview with one of my guests this morning who was talking about even thinking about birth control or contraception as an endocrine disruptor, because that is what it's literally doing. It's shutting down your endocrine system and your reproductive system, and you send that signal for 15 years. By the time you want to get pregnant, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So there's a lot of factors that work against us. And then, of course, my favorite is stress, right? Everyone talks about stress. And the reality is the HPAO axis, which is basically the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals. That's what we know for sure, HPA. But the hormones that the adrenals release, cortisol, norepinephrine, epinephrine, go and impact the ovaries. So now you're looking at a direct link between how the stress is affecting your body, even if you don't realize it. And that stress is going to directly have an impact on the ovaries or testes, depending on male or female. So then we create the stress as a physiological impact on our reproduction. And a lot of people, like, I've heard this advice given so much, and I just like often roll my eyes, like, just relax, you'll get pregnant. And that's and that used to be a lot of the advice that women got. And I still hear this advice. And my response to that is like, that's kind of like saying, don't see red cars. And then you're driving on the road and literally all you see is red cars.
Yeah.
So, it takes the right kind of clicking into place of getting rid of all the toxins, clearing away the blocks, whether those blocks are endocrine function, whether that's your thyroid, your adrenals, and then like really optimizing your gut health and the impact that that health has on your uterus and ovaries. So our approach is, yes, mind body approach is great. We need our minds. We need like meditation and all of the techniques that are out there, but we have to ground it into science. And how do we bring that change on a physiological level of all the hormones and gut and all the things that can be out of whack into today's society that lead to the struggle of not being able to conceive?
I love that because that literally runs the gamut of things that people are struggling with right now. What are some of the secrets though, once you like, and by the way, it doesn't have to be one thing preventing you from getting pregnant. It could be a multitude of things.
Yeah.
And then once you start correcting them one at a time, it's like a domino effect where they just all start clearing out of your way. But what are some of the secrets that maybe we don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one secret that I would share that I feel like has become like the grounding force in our practice is discover. And we call it the discovery phase, which is essentially we want to know and pinpoint with lab tests, with functional medicine, with sitting down and really understanding what's happening for you and your partner. What are the underlying factors that are in the way of your fertility? And I kid you not, like 85 to 90% of people sit down with me for the first appointment and they're like, Doc, we've been on this journey for 3 years. We've been through IVF cycle after cycle. We have done everything. We have tests out the wazoo, and they will literally bring me a thick binder, like those 2-inch binders. This is back when things were in physical real life. Now they just upload it all, but they'll bring these like thick degrees of tests, test after test after test. And they're like, we've tested everything. Like, there's nothing wrong with us. We've tested it all. And I sit down with them and I'm like, well, here's what I think is going on. And they're like, what? I've literally never heard of this. So it's really like figuring out the missing pieces of the puzzle. And if I can help from our side, there is a lot of what I've already named: the adrenals, the thyroid, the neurotransmitters, which have a direct impact on estrogen and progesterone, the ovarian function. So if we're really talking about egg quality, how viable are those eggs to turn into a future child? And then also looking at sperm health and really talking or understanding the male side of this, and that they are 50% of the equation. So the number of times that I've sat down with couples and they're like, oh, you want the guy's sperm to be tested? What do you mean? That doesn't impact anything. And I'm like, really? Like, the sperm has no impact. That's really interesting. So to think, like, it sounds so basic, right? Like, of course the guy is important, but no one has paused to question, is this guy's sperm any good? Is he at an optimal level of health? I was crying literally this weekend. I met a woman, 34 years old. I'm hosting this table at a conference about fertility. And she's the only one at the table. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I was like, it was a networking conference. I was like, do you do fertility? What's your story? And she's like, no, I'm actually here for myself. I want to figure out my stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm like listening to her tell her story. Her partner has had a vasectomy. So they went in with a needle and took sperm out of the testes, and they have vials of the sperm in a bank. And then she now has been through 3 retrievals with no embryos, none whatsoever. She's 34. She has no hormonal irregularities. All of her symptoms, like, I went through the whole checklist and I was like, everything sounds good on your side. Have they tested his sperm? And she's like, what do you mean? They told me the sperm move. And I was like, oh no, have they tested the sperm? Like, they should know if the quality of that sperm is any good. And she's like, oh, how do you test that? And I was like, it's called a DNA fragmentation test. You take some sperm and send it off to this lab. And she's like, no, I've asked them multiples of times. She's been on this journey since 30. She's like, they keep telling me it's me and my age. And I'm like, you're 30 when you started this. There's no reason that this is your doing. And so we've just like wiped away any idea that the sperm and the egg have to connect. Ooh, I'm so sorry. Have to like connect and create the embryo that is going to be the future child. And the quality of that sperm is huge. It is literally like And what she's telling me, my analogy for her was literally like, oh, so that's like taking frozen food out of the fridge, out of your freezer, 5 years expired, and saying like, hey, isn't this food still good? You can still eat it. And I was like, yeah, that's totally ridiculous. Like, we should really look at, are these sperms sitting there any good? And she was like, oh, that totally makes sense. Why didn't they tell me? And she was crying and I was crying. I was like, this just sucks. Like, why do we keep doing this to women and keep acting like, oh, it's all on us when the other 50% is the man? I can keep going.
Well, I was going to say, I agree with you that the only testing that I know that they do not randomly, but regularly for men's sperm is a count and mobility. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't check the quality of that sperm. And here's the
Right.
thing, if you don't have healthy sperm, even if it's connecting with the eggs, you're not going to procreate because your body just knows that's not a healthy. And so it does what the body does with something when it's not, viable.
So, exactly. It's like survival of the fittest is still very much a thing. So in general, sure, there are babies born every single day that are genetically abnormal. There's things that happen, but on a broad scale, humanity and nature is not going to allow abnormal existence of embryos. So there's a self-selection process. They don't stick, they don't fertilize, or they don't keep growing. So those are the ways, the fail-safe mechanisms. And sure, again, my heart goes out to mamas that have potentially genetically abnormal babies. But at the end of the day, like, that's a really tiny percentage compared to all the kids that are born every single day. So to say that the sperm doesn't have any impact, then for years I've been touting this, right? Like, luckily now there are studies to back this up. But when I first started, there were not these studies. So I used to talk about, like, if guys have abnormal blood sugar, I could almost always guarantee that was having some weird effect on the sperm. We still don't know what that effect is. Some weird impact on the sperm that would cause the woman to have pregnancy loss. So these women, I would see them over and over and over again. And like, we're kind of specialized in recurrent pregnancy loss. So people would come to me and they're like, we're getting pregnant. It doesn't stick. And for years, I was like, I think we should check the guy. And these are really easy tests to do. 85% of the time, these men had borderline diabetes or were actually diabetic, undiagnosed. And we would reverse their diabetes. They would get pregnant again, and voila, they have a baby. And some of them went on to have multiple babies after that. So it blows my mind that we, even today, like, these studies only came out in 2017, 2018. So up until then, there were really no studies that was proof to what I had to say, but that this is happening. And there are factors in men that we can test that we still don't know quite what it does to sperm, because their sperm will look normal. So they can do count, motility, and morphology, and the sperm looks fabulous. Most of the time, these guys walk away and the doctor is saying, your sperm are great, it must be the woman. Your sperm are great, it must be the woman. And unfortunately, like, no one looks deeper than that. So when I talk about, like, the biggest secret, like I said, is the discovery. It's really knowing what are your factors as a couple that is creating the kind of environment that either makes it really hard for you to get pregnant or to stay pregnant. And if we can figure it out, we can address it, rebalance it, and like get both of your health and fertility on track so that you can get pregnant, and doesn't have to take forever. It really
Dr.
doesn't.
Aumatma, I think you are like a huge bundle of hope. And I love everything I'm hearing. And so seriously, my favorite part of what I read in your bio is you work virtually as well. So if you're struggling and you haven't found somebody in your area and you're like, wait, we've never even thought about that. No one's ever brought it up to us. Maybe that's your secret to success, right? Something that's just been overlooked. And here's the thing, there's only 2 people involved in this baby making. So when they say the guy's fine, it's got to be you, and they don't even pay any attention to what might not be working, no matter what they do with you, it's not going to happen. So I love that you have brought that second piece out into view so that we can all see it. And for those of you who are already going through this, you can go into your doctors and say, I really want to have my husband's sperm tested, more than just mobility and quantity. And or you can reach out to Dr. Aumatma and ask her like, hey, we need help, because she's a big bundle of hope.
Yes.
Where can they connect with you at?
So probably the best place is Instagram. My handle is holistic_fertility_expert. So holistic fertility expert on Instagram. Our website is holisticfertilityinstitute.com. And yeah, we do tons of education. I've been getting emails of like, I've been loving the free education that you're doing these days. So like my job, I feel like my job more than anything else is to empower women to ask questions so that they can have a different outcome.
Thank you so much. You're the whole reason I started my whole process in holistic lifestyles, is because there's so much amazing free information online that you can get to empower yourself to take your healthcare and your journey into your own hands. Having said that, it's also an online sort of thing. So you don't know what you're getting. You don't know who the person is on the other side. And the reason I wanted to do that is to connect real people like Dr. Aumatma to share her skills and what she's been doing and her success stories with you here in person, so that when you want to go get free advice, you know you're getting not only her advice, but free education from a qualified expert. So thank you so much for everything you're doing. I think you're amazing.
Thank you so much for having me, Jana. I think, again, like Best Holistic Life magazine podcast, this is like offering people hope and real advice and education. That's what it's all about, right? It's like we can find all of this on Google, but how do you know if it's true? Right. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for like being the hub and collector of all the amazing people.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I can't wait to talk to you on the next show. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show. That'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.